My husband says I have the whole Batgirl thing going on. So, one of my friends and fellow writers told me I should do a vlog. My husband suggested I might do one to promote my Kindle Countdown deal this week. I told him I couldn't. I'm a businesswoman by day. I have a carefully crafted secret identity to protect. I cannot possibly out myself with a vlog. While I don't really write erotica because the sex and blood toy is very much secondary to the actual, plot, what I write is dark and sensual and comes with a warning. This book is intended for mature audiences only and includes subject matter of violent and abusive nature that may be disturbing to some readers. See, I was first introduced to vampires by Anne Rice when I was 13 years old, and I was on Team Lestat from the very beginning. Through the Vampire Chronicles, I came to know vampires as sexual and sadistic creatures, and I don't want to read or write about them any other way. So, Blood Toy crosses some lines. It is heralded as dark, violent, abusive, sadistic, a must-read with a warning, and my personal favorite, urban fantasy with a mean backhand. This is all very much at odds with my true identity, and this is my husband's solution to protecting it. The mask, standard disguise of heroines and supervillains for millions of years, or roughly 80 anyway, and the wig and the cleavage also his idea. Now, I know I'm not the only one in this new literary frontier with a secret identity. I'm talking to you, indie author wearing the sexy hat and the red lipstick. I borrowed this look from you. Sunglasses and a bandana? Gas mask? You know who you are. I hope I inspire you today to come out of the closet. It's Halloween. Costumes are perfectly acceptable this time of year. We just want to put a voice with a name. So, hello, I am Benevolence Raine, or BK Raine if you're Googling me. I published my debut novel, Blood Toy, in July of this year, and I'm working toward completing book 2, Kindred Shadows, now. When I first started writing, I had a pencil, not a computer, and my handwriting was deliberately atrocious. Come to think of it, it still is. I call my penmanship over my shoulder writing, as in you can't read it by looking over my shoulder. Because inevitably, when someone saw me writing, they'd try to sneak a peek. Readers, if you don't know this already, authors hate people reading their unfinished work, especially pantsers like me, who may not even know how the book is going to end at that point yet. So unless you're the one friend that I bounce ideas off of as I go, chances are you won't get to read more than a snippet until at least the 3rd draft is done. There was a downside to my method. Writing illegibly with an old-fashioned pencil and paper meant that when I was done with book 1, its first life, I rewrote the story 3, 4, a billion times before I published it, no one could read it even if I wanted them to. So I read it to them. I read it to my best friend. I read it to my boyfriend, now my husband. I read it to my parents. This was the first version of the book that was actually tame enough to read to my parents. Once I even read it into a cassette recorder. Yes, I said cassette recorder. And I made my very own book on tape. So, for my very first vlog, since it's Throwback Thursday, I thought I'd do a reading of Blood Toy Book 1. If you like it, you can get it on Amazon for 99 cents through November 3rd. If you've already read it, I'd love to know if it sounds the same coming from my mouth as it did in your head. I heard he had a foot fetish. That's why I was standing barefoot in the elevator, a pair of $900 stilettos with vamp red soles in one hand, a purse too small to hold any weapon deadlier than my dagger in the other. As the car made its slow ascent, I tapped my fingers on the handrail and wished I had taken the stairs. 2 men and a woman shared this space with me, all of us observing prevailing elevator etiquette, which meant we stared straight ahead and minded our own business. One of the men checked out my unpainted toes, while the other frowned at my hand like he hoped the weight of his gaze would hold it still, but nobody asked and I didn't oblige. The men got off 5 stories before my stop, muttering, "Have a good one," to the woman, whose employee badge read Cindy. I wondered what it would be like to work there, to ride the elevator every day to and from some mundane office job, and make small talk with strangers between floors, to tip my head at the security guard every morning, and drink too much spiked punch at lame company parties. Cindy made eye contact with me for a split second and smiled before looking at the floor again. After a pause, she said, "Excuse me, but the price tag is still on your pants. Do you want me to get it for you?" I tugged my blouse out of the way and arched my spine in search of it, but ended up just nodding. "If you don't mind." She grasped the tag and hesitated. "I'm afraid I'll rip the seam." "Don't worry about it. I was only going to wear them once anyway." "Are those Louboutins?" I wedged my feet into the heels, scowling. "Whatever they are, they're evil. I've always wanted a pair." "Well, you can have them when I'm done." She tittered behind her hand and nodded goodbye when the doors opened again, one floor below my stop. I wondered what it might be like to have a friend like Cindy, to borrow each other's clothes and grab coffee together after work. 20 minutes earlier, I had walked into the upscale boutique next door wearing off-the-shelf jeans and combat boots. I feared the sales associate might pass a kidney stone just looking at them. I was also pretty sure she burned them as soon as I left. Now, along with my usual slim white button-up and camisole, I wore black skinny pants that showed off pale ankles and 5-inch heels that made my legs look 7 feet tall. I'd coiled my coffee brown braid into a low bun and donned lipstick as red as the soles of my shoes. My neck and collarbones were bare. That was what I hated most. The doors opened on a stark white lobby and reception desk. Do or die time, I reminded myself to make noise when I crossed the room. The receptionist smiled, so I matched her expression. "Harlan is expecting me." "Sure, your name, please?" "Stacy," I lied. "Just a sec." She picked up the receiver and dialed an extension. "Mr. Barnes, your 11 o'clock is here." To me, she said, "He'll be right out if you want to have a seat." I didn't, but it was expected social protocol, so I sat. 5 minutes later, a dark-haired man in a beige 2-button suit appeared. He reminded me of a politician when he smiled. "Stacy, so sorry to keep you waiting." I wagged my leg at him before uncrossing it to stand. In those heels, I was 6'2", Amazonian compared to Harlan. "No trouble." He led the way to an office with windows that framed an impressive view of the city, jagged spires of concrete and steel lacerating the sky. I sat down again, this time in a low-backed chair upholstered in stiff green leather. I expect him to put his feet up on the desk, but apparently that only happens in movies. "Tell me about your portfolio. I understand you're looking to diversify." Yeah, whatever that meant. I gave him the same smile I'd given his receptionist and peeked at him from beneath a heavy fringe of lashes. "I have a confession to make." "What's that?" "I didn't come here for investment advice." He ran a well-manicured finger over his lips. "I do hope you aren't a process server. You are far too pretty to turn over to security." Imitating Cindy's giggle, I asked, "You think I'm pretty?" "Of course." "Good." I tried for a seductive grin as I stood, an expression at odds with my reeling insides. Taking slow, deliberate steps to his side of the desk, I contemplated his receding hairline. He had been on the bad side of middle age when he got brought over, but he was still handsome in a Land's End catalog model kind of way. I perched myself on the edge of his desk, crossing my legs and my $900 shoes toward him. "I hoped you wouldn't think I was a stalker." "Why would I think that?" He draped a hand across my knee. I resisted the urge to slap it away. "You know, Harlan, you are a hard man to get alone." "I didn't realize you'd been trying." "I've seen you in the building, and I thought we could be friends." "Friends?" "Buddies," I clarified. "We can be buddies." He stood, invading my space to show he caught my meaning. After coaxing my legs apart, he drew an ankle up to his waist. His thumb traced the veins that ran along the inside of it. I wanted to ask him if the action was intentional. Instead, I dug my spiked heel into his side, possibly with more force than necessary, though Harlan didn't seem to mind. He unbuttoned my pants while I opened my purse. "I'm clean, trust me," he said. I withdrew a tin of mints, popped one in my mouth, and offered another to him. "Humor me." He did. Then he kissed me. It was wet and sloppy, but it worked. I pushed my own mint into his mouth and kept my lips pressed to his until he swallowed that too. As soon as he did, he pulled away, his eyes turning the color of cherry Kool-Aid. He was a young one. What was that? That was candy-coated amethyst. From between my breasts, I withdrew a syringe and thrust the needle into his jugular. "This is salt water." I didn't quite make it out of spitting distance before he started to die. While he puked blood, I locked the door, stripped off my blouse and slacks, and changed into the thin jersey skirt and ballerina flats I had rolled up in my purse. My backup syringe fell out of my clothing and cracked on the corner of Harlan's desk. Good thing I don't need it now. After wiping off traces of lipstick, I took down my braid and finger-combed my hair into ripples that fell to my waist. I wiped off my prints and stuffed everything but the Louboutins in Harlan's trash can. Those I would leave at the security desk for Cindy. It was really just a courtesy cleanup. When people like Harlan die, cops are seldom involved. I remember the emergency exit was located next to the elevator, so I would have to go out the way I came in. The receptionist was gone when I entered, and the lobby almost vacant, except for the dark-haired man seated in the very same chair where I had waited to meet Harlan. He claimed a wide territory, arms spanning the backs of two chairs, legs spread, keys and cell phone arranged on the coffee table on top of aging copies of GQ and Money magazine. He leaned forward when I entered and fixed me with a hard stare that made the room feel too small for both of us. He stood when I passed him and cornered me at the elevator. I considered the stairs, but decided against them. What if he followed? I didn't have a backup syringe, not to mention I was underdressed. I made a mental note to be better prepared in the future. Always carry 2 syringes and never, ever wear a skirt. Going down? He asked. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just nodded. He reached over me and pressed the button to call the car up, brushing his bicep against my shoulder and pressing his chest against mine. My ass hit the wall before I realized I was backing away. My head screamed at the invasion of space, and I held my breath to contain it. He extended his hand. Christopher de Solidor. A pleasure meeting you, miss. I never took my eyes off of his. They were the color of aged Merlot. Damn. Stacy, I said. The elevator doors opened. He leaned inside, punched the lobby button for me, then held the door until I entered. I resisted the urge to press my back into the corner farthest from him. His mouth curled with mild humor. Next time, you'll have to tell me your real name. I hoped there would never be a next time. Barring that, I hoped if there was a next time, I would have another syringe between my breasts and a much bigger knife. I really want to read the next scene to you because it's a really good one, and it's also the book title scene, but you're going to have to read it yourself. So Amazon, 99 cents now through November 3rd.